Mickey Cavill, this guy again. Hello and welcome to another episode of With Enough Prep Time. I'm your host, the Nerd Man, and today I'm here with the film elitist, a MCU fan, to discuss whether the MCU is overrated. Now, I had a big debate the other day of MCU versus DC, and it was kind of interesting debate, well, great fun debate. Go and watch it. And the MCU side came in hard with me, but there was a couple of things that, you know, I was just having a conversation with my friend, the film elitist, by the way. So do you want to say hello?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? I'm gonna smash nerd down on this one.
All right.
Body you.
You're gonna body me. I'm actually not coming into this as a debate, though. I was just about to say this to me is not about being a debate. I like talking to you because we have conversations as opposed to and it can turn into a bit of a disagreement, but it's really like a full-on conversation that we're having. And so we were just talking offline, right, about this, and decided just to do an impromptu stream because we came across we've been talking about politics for ages, and then we just came across this kind of thing where we just started talking MCU and disagreeing on a few things, and we decided to just have it out on stream and just see how it goes. So you where we were at, is there anything you want to say, Phil Velitas, before we get into this?
I think the basic argument or the conversation we're going to get into rather is,
dude, can you do something? Where are you at the moment? Sup, K-Dot?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, that's better, but just let me turn the volume down. Keep speaking.
Sure. Okay, I'm trying to get the volume organized here.
That's much better. Let me just put your volume down on.
Sorry about that, guys. Little technical difficulties.
Yeah. Speak.
Okay, speaking. Just swinging.
Perfect. You're much clearer. Whatever you're doing now, keep doing it. Okay. Did you see the Keaton Batman logo teaser? Yeah, I did. It's kind of like a Watchmen kind of thing, which is weird. So I don't know what that's saying. Maybe the Flash is gonna go into the Watchmen universe. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, I didn't really see much about it. But yeah, carry on, Phil Militas. What were you saying?
I was just gonna say, basically offline, we were talking about if I like DC, did I think that it was superior to Marvel? And then we got into a whole discussion about action films and how they compare to Marvel, because you basically see them as action films. So we're going to be setting the stage for all of that fun stuff.
Hey, man. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, exactly. So this is my point, because I was having this debate yesterday, and I did get my ass handed to me for the most part. I was I wasn't on my best form, should I say, but nonetheless, I take a little bit of an L when it comes to that. So it's fine. But one of the things that happens to me in debate, sometimes I can be really good in them, but sometimes I just get distracted by what other people are saying, and then it takes me off course from the ultimate point that I was trying to make. And one of the things that has come up in those streams that we started talking about offline, where we were getting into an interesting conversation, is, for me, I think all the DCEU and the Marvel movies, MCU movies, are for the most part mediocre. I think Marvel and DC did their best films outside the universe, right? So I think that's true of both companies. I think the DC EU movies are for the most part mediocre, but I don't see them as that much worse than the MCU movies, or even worse than the MCU movies. And in some ways, crucial ways, at least to me as a viewing audience, like my personal taste, I find the DCEU movies a little bit like they have a certain level of sophistication to them on the basis that some of them are actually morality tales as opposed to just simple action movies. What I mean by that is that they have a theme that they're trying to get across, that they, um, there's a moral essentially to the story that they're trying to get across, and that through their superhero, these superheroes fighting it out or whatever, they're debating or arguing over a particular emotional or philosophical point. So an example would be just basically Shazam and the whole kind of family theme that is running through it, where that is a discussion, and something that they're talking about, philosophically speaking. This is what I'm saying. I'm always worse at explaining this when I get on streams, but philosophically speaking, right? They're talking about, how not having family or wanting family or the desire for family can impact a person, and how, hey, what's up? What's up? It can impact people in the sense of, they can be good people or decent people underneath, but the fact of how they've interacted with their family, or lack thereof, might change them as human beings and who they are. And that is a discussion that's had that makes the film slightly more interesting than just an action movie. What's up? And what I find is in the MCU, that kind of storytelling is lacking. It's mainly focused on the action elements or the action beats of the story, and just being, for want of a better word, a kind of theme park ride or a toy commercial or something along those lines, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. But if that's all that they are, then I then have to compare them to other movies like that. And that's where the MCU, I believe, starts to become overrated, because when I compare it to other movies that are doing a similar thing, like, say, your average action movie, and I'll go into some examples, I find those action movies are much better made. They're better, they've got better action, they're more creative, and in general are just more enjoyable films.
I just want
So
you to know
that's my opening salvo. Go
I'm
on.
going to reject this thesis outright. So I just want that to
Okay.
be known.
Okay. All right. Well, go. Let's have your opening kind of statement here.
Okay, so to
Hey.
extend an olive branch to begin with, I never liked the DC movies outside of Joker and the original Nolan trilogy, which I think is the greatest achievement in comic book movie history.
Right.
But you were the first person that made me think about it, kind of what you're saying right now about how they do shoot for some really big ideas and themes, and I agree with you on that. My problem with it is that just because you have those elements inside of the movie, I
Mm-hmm.
respect you for shooting for the stars, but you
Yeah.
ultimately still have to succeed as a movie for it to work. And I don't think that these films do. So it's almost
So
like a
you're talking
double.
about DC films now.
Right,
Yeah.
DC films,
Right.
specifically the
Okay.
DCEU, and I think it's a double whammy, right? Because it's like, well, we're trying to do something really big, but we fail on that by proxy because we fail at the basic fundamentals like casting and special effects and cohesive story and a vision. It's like the elements that are there that made the MCU so timeless and connect with people. The studio decisions, you can just see the difference in the way that DC or Warner Brothers operates as a studio. I think that's the distinguishing factor.
Okay, well, let's take we're going to take away the studio and how they operate, because
Okay, just as
I will
films.
I will agree with you that it's a mess. The way the
Right.
DC is, executives and all of the people in charge, I think it's an absolute mess. They're very reactionary. They essentially have a situation where a movie does bad, or sorry, a movie gets critically panned, or there's a certain critique that keeps coming on up about it, like it's too dark or something like that, and they have a knee-jerk reaction to just flip and do the exact opposite. So instead of focusing on the critiques like that are constructive critiques of the movie, they just have these knee-jerk reactions and completely change the next movie to try and fit in with what they feel like maybe general audiences are looking for. And I think that's really bad. It's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater as such. There's good things about Man of Steel that should have been kept. And then there was the critiques that they should have taken of Man of Steel and said, okay, let's do something like Man of Steel, but let's just improve the storytelling, so the storytelling's a little bit more coherent or something like that. So I think, again, I completely agree with you on the management of DC. That's not what's at issue here.
Right.
For me, what's at issue is you're talking about the reason that the MCU is better is, like, say, something like CGI, or there's
Casting is a big,
casting,
huge part.
all of this kind of stuff is good. But here's my problem with the MCU is they cast these great actors, but they cast them for really roles that are kind of really beneath them. I mean, you get someone like Mads Mikkelsen, who's an excellent, like, he was one of the most iconic James Bond villains ever in Casino Royale, right? And you get someone like him and you cast him in Doctor Strange, and he's just a nothing, unmemorable villain. Why would you cast someone of that caliber to play that ultimately thankless role? And then let's get into it. It's reminding me of something. Casino Royale. Can you tell me any MCU movie that's better than Casino Royale?
I don't know if there's a better one. I think they're on par. I think Winter Soldier, Infinity War, maybe the first Guardians. That's just independent films.
I mean, I'm shocked. I'm really shocked, and I want to hear you out on this. I really
Okay,
do.
let me be clear about something. Is the
Okay.
MCU overrated? Yes, a little bit, right? It's a landmark in film achievement that they created this universe, but it's not The Godfather. It's not American History X. It's not Birdman. It's not like most of these movies are Oscar-winning movies. I mean, a lot of them, like Thor and Ant-Man, they're very formulaic, right? And on that hand, I would agree with you that some of them are they're not that deep. But then you have movies like The Winter Soldier and Infinity War and Civil War, where the themes are not only mature and adult and interesting, but the
Okay. What
execution.
themes are there? What themes are there that are mature and adult and sophisticated?
I think like that someone would harbor a secret that affected your life, affected your whole history, your perception of your childhood, who is supposed to be your friend and your teammate, a soldier in the fight for humanity with you, has
Mhm.
essentially betrayed you because he picked his childhood friend over you and concealed something that was life altering, and the way that that affects the team and the way that
Okay,
um
so let's compare. I get where you're going with that. That whole Iron Man, Captain America kind of
and also also
the tension between them, right?
and also
So let's
Baron
compare
Zemo.
that. Let's compare that, or Baron Zemo, who kind of like is just a nothing villain for most of the film, and then right at the end they just throw in a story to make you somehow kind of think that he's a relatable
Oh,
villain.
come on.
I don't think he's really like. Let's compare him again to Casino Royale. charisma of the villain, the kind of way that he opposes James Bond. It's just a much more enjoyable villain to watch. Now, I would say Casino Royale is pretty much on the same level. It is just a straight up action movie. There's not much by way of sophisticated or poignant meaning behind that film. It's just a straight up espionage, spy, thriller, action movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of what you're talking about as like being one of the deeper themes in the movie is just like this kind of rift in the relationship between Iron Man and Captain America. You could say the same thing about Thesper and James Bond, right? Like he gets in this relationship with a woman who's the first woman he ever trusts. He's usually just this player who essentially sees women as conquests, that ultimately are to be left behind once conquered. And then finally a woman breaks through to him, gets through to his heart. He breaks down James Bond a little bit, and he emotionally engages with her and she betrays him by the end of it. I don't see that as a sophisticated theme in that movie. I just see that as fairly good character work. Like it's like, you're telling a story, you want some kind of emotional engagement or emotional center to the story. So let's give the characters some moment of kind of conflict between each other. That's not necessarily like a big theme in the movie.
But it's not just that. It's also deconstructing Tony and Cap's past and how they connect to each other.
I get that. I get that. I get what you're saying there. But my point is that, again, you can say that there's a similar type of relationship that happens in Casino Royale, right? But here's where the difference is. The difference is, like, you look at an action scene from Casino Royale, the way it's filmed, the way it's shot, the way, like, say, for instance, that parkour scene in the beginning of Casino Royale. Where do you get a scene that is as filmic, as cinematic, and as satisfying to kind of watch, and just admire as a piece of kind of filmmaking in something like Winter Soldier?
I think you
the Avengers.
I think you get the more cinematic action sequences in the Avengers and the team up movies, but you get the better films from the solo movies, like Iron Man or Winter Soldier, but you do get very, very high level action sequences in the Avengers films.
I'm trying to think of like ones that I would say, I mean, yeah, you get like good CGI, right? But I'm trying to think of ones where I would say, wow, that was shot in an amazingly interesting way, or the stunt choreography in that is incredible. Like, how the fuck did they do that? I
would say that the MCU doesn't compare to like Mad Max, Fury Road, or Casino Royale when it comes to like, or even John Wick when it comes to like an action film. But I guess maybe you have a point on that, but I think when it comes to DC versus the MCU, I don't think you have a point, because they just master so many areas of what makes a film better than DC does, in my opinion.
Well, here's the thing, though. I don't know if that's because I would say the DCEU movies are mediocre when it comes to the very things that I'm talking about. I don't think there's a DCEU movie that's better than I couldn't really look at myself in the mirror and honestly say I as much as I love these DC characters, there's a DC film that even you can talk about in the same kind of sentence as something like Casino Royale or The Predator, right? Like these kind of movies are just way better, way better. Uh, like, all right, let's say Independence Day, which is like kind of got some comic elements to it as well. I think the comedy is more sophisticated in something like Independence Day than it is in the MCU movies. I think the seamlessness of the CGI is more, it's better kind of done considering the time that it was made in. I guess the point I'm trying to get to is, yes, you might be right that in terms of just the surface elements of the films of the MCU, you could say maybe they have an edge on DC. I don't know how much more of an edge, if it's that different, until you
Huge
get to
edge.
something like Endgame and
No, because
uh,
having Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man from the beginning will always trump having Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. I'm sorry, there's no contest on that. There's no contest on the casting.
Okay.
I just want to state that. Maybe the other elements, I don't know, but not the casting.
Well, again, I don't think the casting was that bad. I think they, in the DCEU, I think they put forward, for the most part, quite charismatic performances. So it's not. I don't see it as markedly noticeable that they're doing such a terrible job that I would say that that's the real difference. Like the MCU has just this great casting that makes all of their movies just so much better.
But really,
The
think
problem,
about it.
the problem again that I can have with the casting of the MCU is they're given these thankless roles. You get like this great actor, and he's just given a role that's just beneath them.
But
Like
think about
I
this.
don't see the point in it. You might as well just hire somebody who can just like who's worthy of that particular role, and just do as good a film as you can with it. Like rather than, I don't know. It just seems to me like Anthony Hopkins for Odin is just a little bit too much. And he does really well with the role. I mean, I think he's probably the best actor in like say Thor 1. He was the most, for me, one of the more enjoyable things in that movie. But do you really need Anthony Hopkins, Oscar nominee, like 2 times, won an Oscar over like even well, if you get what I'm saying, I think
But here's what you're
it
missing.
yeah, go on.
Okay. So Anthony Hopkins, Tilda Swinton, Mad Mickelson, yes, they have a lot of people that are fantastic Oscar-winning actors that are relegated to like side roles. But you cannot understate that the core element of what makes the MCU great, the most important characters, they nailed the casting. Robert
I don't
Downey
think they
Jr.
did. I don't think they did.
Come
I
on,
mean,
man.
Hulk was terribly cast. I
Okay,
don't think Thor. I don't think Thor is particularly Chris Hemsworth. I mean, as I've seen him go through these movies, I'm like, yeah, he's okay casting. He's not fantastic. I mean, like I could
but
see other people play Thor.
Sam
Um,
Jackson as
let,
Nick Fury.
Sam
Well,
Jackson as Nick Fury is a waste. Again, I just don't
I
see, why do you
disagree.
need Sam Jackson to be Nick Fury? I don't
He
think he's
nails it.
that great a character until, apart from one point in Winter Soldier.
I
That's the only
disagree.
time I really liked the character. So I'm just like,
I think Captain America, Iron Man, Nick Fury. Um, you also have Black Widow, Hawkeye. Like,
Black
and,
Widow again was a nothing character until Endgame. To me,
right,
I
but
had
it is.
no interest in her
But
until
to be
like what she
fair,
did in Endgame.
it is a universe, and they're building the characters as they move along. And ultimately, I think that when I look back at those characters, and I'll give you the Hulk. You know, whatever. I don't. They fucked the Hulk over, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But everything outside of the Hulk, the original Avengers, they were perfectly cast, in my opinion. Could I see someone else's Thor? Sure, but
Yeah,
uh, Iron Man and Cap, I couldn't see anyone else. Nick Fury, I couldn't see anyone else.
I could
Agent
see other
Coulson,
people as Captain America, but he did a really good job.
I
But I
couldn't.
can
And
see
guess
other,
what?
and I, you know, like Iron Man is the only one where I'm like, Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. That's the
Okay, well,
only one I see in the MCU where I'm
let's
like,
say
I
this
could
then.
see.
Let's say this. Maybe it's not perfect to you, right? But they didn't fuck up as much as DC, and that matters because Jesse Eisenberg is Lex Luthor, Amy Adams is Lois Lane, Henry Cavill is Superman, Ben Affleck as Batman, uh, almost everyone in the Suicide Squad that's not uh, Margot Robbie. They fuck up constantly with the castings. Like, I mean, they're I
Wait,
don't know
wait,
how
wait.
you guys feel.
Let me go over that. I don't want this to be like we can do this. I don't mind doing this, but this wasn't my intention. I
Okay,
don't want this to be a DC versus Marvel 2.0. I feel like that
okay,
I had that debate, and I don't mind it doing that debate again. And it's absolutely fine. I can go into that debate again, but that wasn't my intention. I want everyone to know this is not my intention to be like I had that battle. You know, it went down how it went down, and it's not my intention to retry or whatever this case with an MCU fan. But if you want to go into the verses in the casting, I would say this, like, it's not really my focus in this discussion, um, because I want to I want to address the thing of, like, I think all of these movies are mediocre, DCU and MCU, when it comes down to it. Yes, I think on both sides they have pretty decent casting, apart from, let's say, some misfires with the casting of the Joker and the casting of Lex Luthor. But I can even defend Lex Luthor in terms of what he did in BVS. I'm more than happy to defend, die on that hill, if you will, of Lex Luthor in BVS. I'm sure everyone in the comments is going to turn against me if I do, but I don't care. I will defend that.
it's insanity.
But my ultimate kind of point here is that what the DC has done that allows me to like it, even though I think they are mediocre movies, is they've made their films about something, or alternatively, there's a little bit more, especially with Zack Snyder and his visual flair and stuff like that. I can even defend like something like Man of Steel just for being visually, or Aquaman, which I've come out and said like repeatedly, I don't like Aquaman or Man of Steel. I can at least defend them on the visual and the on a filmmaking kind of level, like the action, the visual element of it, I think is incredible, and their achievements on that level. But where I have a kind of issue with the MCU is that we put them up as if they are great movies individually on their own, like each of these movies stand on their own as these kind of great action movies. But when I start to think about action movies, like movies in that genre, there's no MCU movie that I would put up against any of these. Again, I'd say like Predator. I'd say, again, I mean, we just even put like forward Casino Royale as just a basic action movie. And why on pretty much every level, like they're more sophisticated than the MCU movies in their filmmaking techniques and how they engage you in the action and the character work. Uh, anyway, look, I'll respond to this, but carry on with what you were saying, or you can respond to what I just said there. I didn't do a very good job there, just explaining like everything.
No, I mean,
But
I just think I fundamentally disagree that they're not as cinematic or as good of an action film as something like The Predator. I mean, obviously that's a classic movie and I love it, but I don't think that any of the things that The Predator fails at or succeeds at are all that different than the MCU movies. I mean, some of the MCU movies like Thor or Ant-Man, you know, some of the worst ones. But when you think about something like Infinity War, I don't see how you can say that, because to me, almost other than Star Wars, nothing compares to Infinity War, Endgame, and the Avengers, the first Avengers movie. Like there's such a cinematic, action-packed, um, memorable experience.
okay, so here's the thing about Infinity War, that I think the Infinity War on a film, on in terms of filmmaking, along with like say something like Winter Soldier, as you mentioned, is probably the MCU's greatest, like on a technical level, filmmaking achievements. Right, those are films that look good. The CGI is fucking great. They're a little bit more different and have a little bit of their own personality in comparison with other MCU movies. Specifically with Infinity War, it solves the MCU, the often, you know, the often used critique of the MCU that
Villain
it's not got
problem.
great villains, right? All of that is kind of resolved in, or not resolved, but all of that is said to have been resolved in Infinity War. Here's where I have the problem with Infinity War and Endgame, and why I don't believe they're as good action movies as the ones that I'm talking about. It's one simple thing. First of all, there's a litany of plot holes and plot conveniences in that movie that you have to, the only way that you can enjoy that movie is by accepting those plot holes, all right, and those plot conveniences in order to, just go along with the story. For instance, you take something like something like Thanos and his power level, right, and what he's able to do. He's practically a god, right? And this is a complete plot convenience of the story. He's practically a god, and he can destroy all of these people almost instantly with a thought. And yet he sits there messing around with them for ages, right? When he's said that he's doggedly and dogmatically after this goal of like ending half the universe. If he doesn't want to fuck around with these people, he shouldn't be fucking around with them. Secondly, you've got
But when does that happen?
huh?
But like specifically,
What
what are you
when
saying?
does that
Because
happen? For instance, when he turns the Guardians of the Galaxy into, mush and like whatever, and then as soon as he leaves, they rematerialize, right? Like, so
okay.
why not just get rid of them, right?
But the
Or
other two instances in the movie where he fights the characters, he is going after an Infinity Stone. When he's
well,
fighting them on Titan and when he's on Earth.
so when he's fighting them on Titan, it seems to me, which stone was he going after in the in the Titan scene? He already had the reality one, right?
Yeah, he was trying to get the Time Stone from Doctor Strange.
So he was trying to get the time stone from Doctor Strange. And why didn't Doctor Strange use that time stone again to like, because I think he was saying he can't use it, right? I'm not saying this is a critique of the film. I'm
Yeah,
just trying to be
there was
reminded of
some.
it.
He said something about because he and Wong were protectors of it, they could never use it.
Okay. Okay. Right.
If I'm not
But
mistaken.
yeah. Okay. So yeah, that fight scene was kind of quite spectacular in a lot of ways, but at the same time, the problem I had with that was he'd already defeated the Hulk, and now he's fucking around with Iron Man and Spider-Man, and he's punching them and doing all these things. He's knocked out the Hulk with one stone, and yet he's got now, I think he had about 3 stones by then,
Yeah,
right?
but he wasn't taking them on one, and he was being ambushed, and they had a plan to attack
Mm.
him. Like when he gets a hold of Spider-Man, he puts him on the ground and says, "You're a little insect." And when he finally gets one on
But
one with
he could
Iron
have
Man,
destroyed him with a thought right then.
yeah, I guess so. But I mean, when he fights Iron Man and he goes one on one with him, he wrecks his ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he
I didn't think it.
wrecks him, but he could have. He doesn't need to. Again, he could have destroyed Iron Man with a single thought just then. Instead, he's fucking around like throwing moons into. It just seems to me that they've set up a villain that's way too powerful for these characters, and this is something that they criticized, the Suicide Squad for with the fighting Enchantress, right? She's way too powerful for the Suicide Squad. It doesn't make sense. The same thing happened with Thanos in Infinity War. And yeah, he's a much better character and he's much more fleshed out. So I'm not trying to say that's necessarily equivalent, but it's the same kind of dilemma if you've got a way too powerful villain who, again, literally, you can say, yeah, they ambushed him and yeah, they did this. But the fact is, Doctor Strange was really the only problem for him in that fight because of the abilities that Doctor Strange has. Everyone else, he should have been able to wipe out with a thought. As soon as he got them one on one, as soon as Iron Man was fighting him, there was no need for him to, he was against Thor and Hulk and Loki, and somehow, he completely annihilates them, and yet he's fighting these much weaker, more vulnerable Avengers, and it's taking him time to defeat them. I don't see how it makes sense.
Well, to be fair, he did have a ship and an armada and the Black Order with him when he attacked Asgard.
Right, but he knocked out Hulk, who's supposedly one of the most powerful. He's the only one who could even click to do the Infinity War. Sorry, to do the to reverse the blip. Essentially, he's that powerful, right? He's the only one who
Right.
could do
I mean,
that.
if
And
you want to
yeah,
be honest about it, if he was going to Mind Stone or Reality Stone imagine characters away, it would have been a less interesting movie. So it is a bit of a plot hole for sure. Like they needed to have him actually fight the Avengers.
nerd man. Why doesn't Darkseid attack the heroes instead of staring at them through a portal for 45 seconds? We could get to that. I will definitely get to that. I love the way Pickles just. You know what? I was hoping that nobody would even come to this stream straight away. That I'd put it on later and people can come back to it. But it seems to have attracted all of these people.
Oh, yeah.
It's just because we were having this interesting conversation offline, and I thought, oh, let's put it online. So, all right, as well, let's talk about some more inconsistencies in Infinity War that you don't have in these other films that are they're just good action movies. There's no plot holes. They're just, they take you from A to B to C, and you can follow the story without having to give all of these caveats to the film, to go along with it. So you have, and this is in pretty much in every scene of Infinity War. Now, I don't want to go through every single one, but like in every scene of Infinity War, there's something that just doesn't quite hang together for me. So there's this thing of the 1 million and something possibilities that Doctor Strange saw, and there was only one where the Avengers beat Thanos. Can we go into that a bit? What is your opinion of that whole thing?
Okay. Even if you think that's ridiculous, which I would disagree that it is, I think it makes sense.
Okay, tell me. I'm going to let you speak first, and then I'll go after.
So I don't think that's that ridiculous, considering all the things you just constructed with your argument a second ago about how powerful Thanos is. That there would only be one timeline where they're going to come out on top, because they're not going to stop him from assembling the gauntlet. So literally, there's only one possibility, which is Tony Stark figures out time travel. Okay, and then two, I also that is the kind of shit I want to see, dude. That is straight out of the comics. Like that's the kind of thing that even though it may be a little silly on the surface, it's so much what I loved about comic books growing up and the TV shows and the movies is like we're outnumbered, we're outgunned. There's one possibility where we come out on top here, and we're gonna have to go back in time to fix all of this. Like that's straight out of the comics, dude.
Okay, that's fine. But like, we're talking about this in comparison with other action movies, and we're saying that like these films are mediocre. So this is straight out the comics. Fine, I get that. But the fact that it leaves a plot hole, that it leaves a plot convenience, a plot hole,
Yeah,
still
I mean,
makes it,
you could,
still helps to look towards the case of saying that these are worse movies. So
well, I'll help your I'll help your argument.
let me say the plot hole that this creates for me. So you've got 14 million, according to philosophical people here. It's even more than 1 million. It was 14,605 ways in which the he's really good at counting, by the way. Ways in which the Avengers could lose this fight, right? And there's only one where they win, and this one where they win is reliant on a rat literally crawling over this machine to bring the Ant-Man back out of the quantum universe.
But that seems
right?
realistic, right? I mean,
How could you so he lets Thanos take the time stone, right? Because he's relying that a rat will randomly walk over a thing and open up this quantum realm and let the Ant-Man out.
well, if
that's his plan.
There would only be if you really think about how absurd the universe is, right? And the mathematical probability of that rat doing that would only happen in 1 in 14 million. So it makes sense, you know what I'm saying? That there's one universe where everything lines up perfectly.
So
with the infinite universe type theory.
So you're saying he sees the rat coming through, and he puts that as part of his calculation, right? As to, okay, that's interesting. And then, so, I mean,
I'll help your argument for a second.
Look, go on.
I would say the one, I don't think what we're talking about right now is that ridiculous, but I will say this. I recently rewatched Infinity War and Endgame.
Yeah.
And my friend pointed it out to me, and I didn't realize this before. I was blinded by the fact that it was coming out, and I was so excited to see it. I have to say, it's beyond fucking absurdity that Tony Stark is approached with the idea of let's figure out time travel, and he literally figures it out in one night.
Oh no, that was another thing I would bring up. Yeah, but I wanted to stick to Infinity War for a moment, because Infinity War is the one that everyone says is like the kind of great one, and then people even concede that Endgame has lots of problems with the time travel stuff.
I think Infinity War was pretty tight with the plot.
I don't. I mean, I think there's because I think Infinity War you should take what happened in Infinity War and, say you can critique it on the basis of how it got paid off in Endgame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there might be something in Infinity War that on the surface, if you just take Infinity War, it makes sense. But once you actually see Endgame, it like negates the thing that was set up in Infinity War.
Because I feel like we explained the rat thing away pretty good.
I don't think you did, but I think
think about this.
Fair enough.
Rick and Morty, right?
He in that particular situation was able to see that the rat would open up this thing. I don't know how a rat does that. How does the rat like press the buttons in that particular kind of way that
it just walked over one button.
It walked over one button, but wouldn't the battery need to be on for the thing? Like the electricity and everything was working in the van at the time. It just doesn't hang together that machine would even be on in a way that the
Well,
rat could just do that.
I think the machine is self-sustaining because it's running on like Hank Pym particles and shit. So
Hank Pym particles. There's a good one of how they were getting all those Hank Pym particles and why they didn't go uh why they didn't go to the 70s in the first place, which was a much easier time to get like this is for Endgame anyway, but
right.
which was a much easier time to get that particular stone that they wanted to get, you know. Like that they went basically to the Battle of New York to get that stone, which is a much harder thing to do than just going back to the 70s and where they got it much more easier. But anyway, that's again Endgame. Endgame is riddled with this stuff. There's the stuff about, if you take the stones out of a reality, it completely turns the reality to chaos, and yet they seem to be taking stones out of realities, therefore turning the other reality to chaos. But again, Endgame riddled with that shit. But if you're talking about a probability of one in however million like things,
14
how
million,
is that
65.
even 14 million and whatever? That kind of math is fucking absurd. That means the Avengers lose. You cannot have a situation where you've got one in something. I mean, you that means the Avengers won the lottery like 50 times over, right? They randomly put some some
But
numbers down, and
they
they
have the
won the
foresight.
lottery. That's like lightning striking you 7 times during life. What they did. It's just probable. The probable. The If basically given the way the Avengers won in the end, there were many more possibilities that they could have won. Do you accept that? Like, given what actually happened in that film in Avengers Endgame, right? If you look at that scenario and how they ended up beating Thanos, that wasn't a 1 in 14 million probability. That
I
was
think
like
so
a
because
that was
here's
like
why.
a almost a 49. It was a 49-51
Here's
split. Like
why. Here's
Thanos was
why.
a little bit more likely to win, but not like way like. Go on,
Here's
tell
why.
me how.
Because there's only a 1 in 14 million chance that that rat crawls over that machine just the way it did. And if that doesn't happen,
No, wait a second. That's a contradiction right there.
no, no,
That rat had to have played into more scenarios than just one.
no,
Because
because that's
then you're saying, how could he predict that rat was going to do that?
he saw the future. He looked into the future and saw the sequence of events. He's Doctor Strange, dude. He saw what was going to happen. It's the only scenario where
Dude,
Ant-Man gets released.
we're doing maths for clowns right now. We're doing
I'm
maths for
telling you,
clowns.
dude.
The
I'm
rat
telling
had
you.
to have played into much more scenarios. The rat had to have at least played into like let's
But it
say
was the only scenario.
7 million of those. The rat is the thing that must have been like, oh, that rat always does that.
But it has
Like
to be
the
the rat.
rat kind of.
It has to be the rat. It has to be Tony being the one that snaps his fingers. It has to be a lot of different things that mathematically make it the one scenario. You know,
So wait, Tony. So what if couldn't Captain Marvel have done that?
I guess that there was
How would that would have been 2 possibilities then if
well, no,
Captain Marvel did it.
because he looked into all the futures and saw that all of the different events that were going to take place, they
So
only had
somehow, if Captain Marvel had have got that thing, it just wouldn't have worked out.
well, something else would have been going on in the timeline that she wouldn't have been able to do it in time. They would have been stopped before. But that was the one scenario where everything played out perfectly, and that's why it makes sense because that's how stacked against the odds they were. That they were fucking with a god, like you said. You know.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Sorry, I think some people want to
Oh,
join. I
sorry.
really didn't mean to do this. This is supposed to be like just some kind of like intimate like conversation of like all right.
We're making love right now. I need privacy.
But, But yeah, I see what you're saying, and it's fine and everything, but like that is math for like crazy people.
I don't think so,
What
because if
you're
you watch
talking
like a show,
about.
I know that Rick and Morty has the joke of like, if you watch Rick and Morty, you're smart, and if you don't, you're not. I don't agree with that shit. But the part about the infinite universes, they do scientifically explain that pretty well, like how absurd it is and how, uh, in a way, it makes everything unique, but it also makes everything not unique. But if you think about the infinite universes theory or infinite timelines, it really is like that, that there would only be one situation where everything lines up just perfectly because every action has a reaction and it changes so much on the ripple of time, space time, that just something as simple as that rat crawling over it or Iron Man being the one to snap it or Doctor Strange giving up the stone, all these different things, they ripple through the timelines
But
of
you
the
just said it
possibility.
yourself again. You're just saying you're appealing to kind of science and kind of quantum theory and all of these. And if you're talking about a multiverse, there's a multiverse of all kinds of possibilities. So there's a multiverse where Spider-Man saves them. There's a multiverse where Spider-Man is Iron Man. There's a multiverse where, like, there's all of those kind of range of possibilities happening. Now, if you're talking about along one timeline, right? If you're saying, if you look at the scenario of what actually went down, you can see along the way there was other ways. Once Tony had figured out time travel, he could have gone straight to the 70s, right, and got the thing more easily, and they wouldn't have had to fuck around in New York. There was things that happened, in fact, that, like, for instance, Loki getting away with one of the Infinity Stones. That, according to the what's the woman's name? The
Ancient one?
bald woman, the ancient one. Ooh, let me see if that,
Okay.
according to the ancient one, should have destroyed the timeline that they were in
I,
at that
I
specific
think I
moment.
think I have the counter argument for you.
Okay.
Think about it like this. How many universes does Tony end up snapping and getting the gauntlet? How many universes does the rat crawl over and release Ant-Man? How many universes does Tony Stark figure out fucking time travel? How many
Well,
universes?
if he can just figure it out over a cup of tea in the afternoon, then surely most of them.
But I'm saying all of these events that led to him figuring it out have to happen in the way that they did for him to even figure it out.
But wait, what events happened that made it
Like
like that he
Ant-Man.
would so
Ant-Man,
Ant-Man coming out, he comes out, right? And he
right.
essentially the rat lets him out. Fucking rat. The fucking rat lets him out, right?
Right.
That has to have happened in more than one fucking universe. You cannot
Okay.
tell me that that didn't happen in more than one situation. That rat is driven purely by instinct
K-Dot's gonna
and
back me
whatever.
up here.
What up? Hey,
Just what up.
I just wanted to chime in on one quick thing because I just wanted to offer up something. Because you guys talking about the 14,605 possibilities, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna give you one, but out of the 14,605 possibilities, there's two ways they could have won. Because if you look at the way they had to win, they had to wait 5 years, they had to time travel, and Iron Man had to die.
Yep.
Because Doctor Strange said there's only one way and it has to be this way.
Right.
And that way was for Iron Man. So maybe Doctor Strange will explain this in Multiverse of Madness. I doubt he will. But through Doctor Strange's way, Iron Man had to die. So there's something important with Iron Man having to die. It wasn't explained for the timeline or whatever. I don't know. But
Well, I
Iron
think
Man
it's
had
that
to
he
die.
has to be the one to snap because every other future he saw where they maybe even got the gauntlet, they weren't able to defeat Thanos in time. But it had to be Iron Man in that specific moment. It was the only time that they had the upper hand because of that nanotech that he got the gauntlet off of him with.
Which doesn't make sense, by the way.
I think it
You
makes
know
sense.
that.
We'll see. Look,
But,
I'm
all
like,
right. Well, I will go into
I'm
that.
like
But
this
anyway.
because it doesn't matter who had the gauntlet because Captain Marvel had the gauntlet and she could have put it on and snapped her fingers and killed Thanos' army.
Yeah. Do you see what I mean?
I'm not saying Hawkeye could have put on the
She
gauntlet.
She didn't wrestle it away from him though. She got punched in the fucking face.
Remember she had it. Remember she had it when she was trying to fly to the thing to time travel. But Thanos threw his sword and he broke the van. Remember he destroyed the time travel.
He took one of the stones out of it before they had the gauntlet.
No. Remember Remember the all female Avengers scene?
Okay, right.
Captain Marvel had the gauntlet. She took it.
Yeah, but he's saying there's one stone missing from it.
No, it had all the stones in it. It was the gauntlet Hulk snapped with, the one Iron Man made, the nanotech glove.
All right.
All the stones was in it. I'm just saying anybody could have snapped. I'm not saying anyone could have snapped. Just like Hawkeye couldn't snap. He's physically too weak to snap. Captain Marvel could have easily snapped if she wanted to and killed Thanos' army. But writing, I think it was more. It was more so for the fans and stuff. I don't think it was no real good reason for Iron Man to have to be the only one to snap. Thor could have snapped. Thor could have done it.
And let's face it. Iron Man snapping doesn't make any sense.
Done it. Let's be real. Well,
Iron Man snapping makes no sense.
It completes the arc of like him being the one to sacrifice himself because of what Cap says to him in the first Avengers about you're not the one that's going to step on the wire. You know,
doesn't matter. It doesn't make any sense that he can snap. We know that. We can go on to the problems of Endgame as well. It doesn't make any sense that he can snap. The Hulk was specifically given that task because of how powerful he is, and he's kind of on the level of Thanos. Thanos and Hulk are much more powerful than Iron Man. That was shown by how Iron Man was handedly defeated by Thanos, even when he wasn't even trying. Right, so he's much. He's on a such a it's like Iron Man might as well be an ant to him, right? In terms of his strength level and power level in comparison to Ant-Man. How the fuck does he snap that thing? How does he snap the gauntlet?
Yeah, because
it's not possible. If Hulk had such a struggle with it.
Well, this is what Nerman, I didn't want to bring this up. Film leaders, you can jump in too. I just want to offer this up, and then I got to dip out. The 14,605 possibilities. The only way for them to win was for Iron Man to snap his fingers. They had to wait 5 years to time travel and do all this stuff just to win, right? Okay. They could have won on Titan. They could have literally won on Titan, right? But for this to happen, it will require for characters to be, a lot more intelligent than they are, actually use their abilities to their fullest extent. For example, Doctor Strange, his portals and stuff, right? Previously in the film, we saw Doctor Strange use a portal to cut off one of the limbs of one of the Black Order, right? At the moment when they was holding down Thanos, this could happen at any point, but the moment when they was holding down Thanos, Doctor Strange could have literally put a portal. You remember when Iron Man and Spider-Man was trying to pull off the glove?
Yeah, he could have put a portal and snap.
All he had to do was literally push a portal over Iron Man and Spider-Man with Thanos' arm on the other side of the portal, send them back to Earth, close the portal, which would cut off Thanos' arm. They have the glove with the stones. Boom, they win.
Boom. And here's the problem, film elitist. You can say,
but they could have won.
And here's the problem. That's what I'm saying. K-Dot, you've hit the nail on the head, because here's the problem with the movie. It's not that each one of these nitpicks would ruin the movie. Like if there's just a single nitpick like what you just mentioned in the film, I'll be like, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, suspension of disbelief. But it's every single fucking frame of that movie makes no sense like that. Or characters have to do things in order for the plot to kind of move on. So again, you know, what's his name? The Guardians of the Galaxy guy.
I'm about to call your ass out, Hot Takes. I really am about to get you.
All right. But what's his name? Star-Lord. There we go. Star-Lord has to become so emotional that he can't see that the universe is in jeopardy by him being so overly emotional. And that, in fact, he would be able to exact his revenge better on Thanos if they get that glove off of him, right? So he has to react and respond in a completely fucking illogical way that makes no fucking sense and punch Thanos in the face, ruining his character, making his character shit. But I will never like Star-Lord again after that. I don't give a shit what they do. Right? They ruined his character by doing... Sorry, go on.
What is to your Star-Lord? This thing. I was okay with Star-Lord potentially being emotional, but my biggest issue with that scene, guess who was right behind Star-Lord that whole time? Literally arm's reach of him. If you go back and watch the scene, who was arm's reach right behind him? Nebula.
Who was in?
Nebula was standing right behind Star-Lord, and she sat there and let him do that.
Exactly. Again.
I'm like, what the fuck is she doing? I'm like, does she want Thanos to win? I was like, what?
Dude,
you
exactly.
Here to fight Thanos and you're going to let freaking
Star-Lord exactly. Win it? And my problem is I've only seen this film, I think, once the whole way through, maybe like twice in little bits, in bits and pieces. But that film has so much of that shit, and MCU fans forgive it because they're like invested over all of these series of films in that film. But as a film standing on its own, when you've got all of those inconsistencies, all of those scenes coming up again and again, thrown in your face, like power scaling, power levels, people's behavior being illogical, irrational, places where clearly, as you said, there's 14 million ways to win, right? He's gone through all of reality. There's not one reality where Nebula fucking grabbed Star-Lord and stopped him from punching the guy. I mean, that to me doesn't seem realistic. But film elitists, please.
All right.
Okay, hey, I gotta tear.
Film elitist, Nerman, I'm gonna hop out real quick. I just wanted to come in, chime in on the 14 million thing. But you guys continue, do your thing.
Peace out, bro.
Hop out. I'll be watching.
Cool, man. Thanks, K-Dot, for coming in, man. And mixing it up a little bit.
So
Go on.
I gotta get your ass real quick, dude, because I'm not saying I disagree with some of what you're saying, but you're myopically and microscopically focusing on these plot contrivances and stuff, and you're making the argument that makes it less of a good movie, but you're fine to throw all of that under the rug for the DC movies because they go for big themes. Like, that's bullshit, dude.
Okay,
That's
so tell me where you see these kind of real, I guess, like plot holes in philosophical pickles. He couldn't help himself.
You son of a bitch.
Right, let me get
God. You didn't even ask me personally for the link, but anyway, I love it. You're here.
No, I asked this guy. I knew he would give it to me.
I would give it to you.
I said it in the chat like 5 minutes ago. You didn't say anything.
Oh, I didn't see it. Sorry. You should have told me.
You were too busy talking about some bullshit.
Okay, but let me get up.
Okay, let him get me. Go.
Because you just asked where do I see these kind of plot holes? There is one in Batman versus Superman, and I'm not even talking about the Martha thing. The thing with Lex Luthor chopping his hand open and dripping blood into an alien spaceship, which he only knows how to do because he read some fucking hieroglyphs off of it 5 seconds ago.
No, he asked the computer to tell him everything.
Oh, okay. Dude, that's stupid and you know it. It is dumb.
It's not that stupid. It's not a plot hole. It's not a plot hole. The computer could have told him how to do that.
There are movies, there are endless moments in that film and in Justice League that are so beyond ridiculous. They're video game level.
Okay,
Martha?
and we're saying both of these franchises have that, and that's why they're mediocre. And
the MCU doesn't have anything on the level of
when
Martha.
I compare. I just told you something to the level of Martha. We just went over
It's
like
not
the
to that level,
whole
though. It's
big
not.
thing. It is terrible. It is
What's on the
terrible. And
what's Martha in the
MCU
MCU?
fans. Oh, there's loads. It's all over Infinity War and Endgame.
What is the Martha scene? What is the Martha scene?
The 14 million bullshit like probability thing that Doctor Strange gives. The fact that that Star-Lord punches Thanos in the face for because he can't wait for control himself for 1 minute so that
That's
he
his
can
character.
actually.
Yes,
No, it's
that's
not
his
his
character.
Don't give me that bullshit about it being his character. Plus, fucking
Yes.
Nebula was behind him, as K-Dot pointed out, so she could have stopped him from doing it. Right?
Well,
She's
yeah.
stronger than him and could have stopped him from doing it. It was so again. Not only is that stupid in terms of a character moment that just makes you think, well, this guy's a fucking idiot asshole just because his girlfriend or whatever is dead or whatever. That means he's going to let half the universe,
because his girlfriend's dead.
Half the universe perish because he can't control himself for 1 minute while they take off his fucking glove.
Yes, that's who he is as a character. He's a hothead who doesn't think.
He's a hothead. So somebody has a gun, right? They've killed your girlfriend. There are a group of people trying to take the gun off him. You're not going to wait for a minute for them to take the gun off him so that you can then go and fight him one-on-one like in a fairer fight. Don't give me that fucking bullshit.
Nerman, if you were in that situation and that was your girlfriend or your mom, you would have done the same exact thing.
No,
you would have laid into that guy.
I wouldn't have sacrificed half the universe because of that.
You wouldn't be thinking. You would black out in anger. That's what happens to humans. Relatable characters like in the MCU, that's what happens to them.
That's not a relatable character. No one does that. As I said, somebody is pointing a fucking gun at me. Right? They're pointing a fucking gun at me. There's people trying to struggle to take the fucking gun off them. And that person has just fucking killed my mom. I'm waiting for the gun to be taken out of his hand. And then I'm going to go and fight them. I'm not going to risk, fucking getting shot and killed like my mother as well and leave my whole family devastated and everything. Look, the point is, logically speaking, right? You wait for the fucking terrible weapon that this person can use against you to be taken off them, and then you fucking lay into them. You fucking go at them completely. I can completely understand.
He doesn't think logically. He's not an intellectual.
Nebula was behind him. She could have stopped him.
She wasn't looking.
And what that shows is that 14 million fucking thing is bullshit because, factually speaking, there must be one reality at least where Nebula fucking stopped him from doing that, or he emotionally was.
This is why I jumped on this, because you're completely just misrepresenting the 14 million.
Dumber than Martha.
No, it's not, because yes, you're right. There are probably more you're focusing on the rat thing like it's so stupid. Yes, there are other realities where the rat might have walked over and released Scott. But in that reality, maybe Black Widow didn't eat a peanut butter sandwich and talk to Cap. That can literally create ripple effects that change the entire universe. Maybe there was a time where fucking Tony didn't go get a haircut on a certain day. He got a haircut on Friday instead of Tuesday. Those things change reality. Maybe there was a reality where they get the gauntlet off. But maybe fucking somebody farts and they smell it and they go, and then, like, there's so many things. If you change one step in reality, it completely changes reality.
Let me make something clear to
it's not as black and white as you're saying it.
I'm not a quantum physics expert. I'm not.
Yeah, go on.
I'm not an I'm not an astrophysicist.
I am.
But as far as I understand about string theory, smart. As far as I can ascertain from like string theory and multiverses and things like that, there are infinite universes where a version of you exists, but there's not an infinite amount of universes where the same events happen. That's the point I was trying to make earlier, and he just hit the nail on the head. There's a version of Iron Man.
There is.
I don't think that's how it works.
There are universes apparently. To be honest, that whole quantum theory, people make too much of this multi-universe thing. They're not necessarily saying there's multiple universes, by the way, but that's independent of this conversation. Given the idea that that we live in a probabilistic rather than deterministic universe, right? You have the kind of issue of every probable universe could possibly exist. So there's just a universe where everything happened exactly the same, except Philosophical Pickle doesn't have a mustache on this particular stream. Everything else is the same about about this reality. That's the only fucking thing that's changed, right?
Not true.
That's
I just
that.
I gotta call you out. I gotta call you out.
Okay,
on
go
this
on.
one. So I mean, obviously, let's look at this from. We can be a little skeptical here because this is a Reddit thread, but it's a Reddit thread of astrophysicists, like college level guys and scientists, guys that have research grants and stuff. They said they went over it on a debate that they covered for 72 hours, and they realized that even in an infinite universe, that infinite universe timeline could exist without covering all possible scenarios. So, like I was saying, there's an infinite amount of us in the universe that we exist, but not all infinite possibilities in terms of scenarios and how they would play out. So I do think it makes sense.
And we're also forgetting.
Wait, sorry. Let's go.
We're forgetting a key. We're forgetting something key here, though.
You said a lot of stuff that you have to unpack there because I don't see how that helps your argument. So, for instance, you might say that if I'm born in a universe and another universe, not all possibilities. Maybe I can't become president because maybe, let's say, I have a genetic disposition to being a lazy fucking asshole or something like that, right? Like that's just part of my genetic kind of fucking thing. I'm just a relaxed guy. I'm not going to be like that ambitious that I'm going to want to become president. So there'll be universes where I'm not a teacher or I'm something else. Maybe I'm an art person or like whatever the thing. But there's not a variation. There's a limited variation because of who the nature versus environmental aspects of who.
But there is a universe. There are certain universes, no matter how infinite they are, where there's an impossibility that you would ever become president, or that you would marry this one person, or that the Avengers could defeat Thanos at all. And if they could, there would only be a few universes where it was possible, or maybe just one. Is what I'm saying. Like the event probability is not the same as the probability that a version of you exists.
Right, but the event probability of what you're saying of the factors that needed to come together, I just can't think you can make me believe that the factors that needed to come together in order to defeat Thanos were that extraordinary that, from what the film displayed to us. Again, if it took if it took Iron Man, Hulk, and a number of different other scientists to come up with time travel, and it took them 3-4 years to figure it out or something like that, and it was just some random event that happened that triggered something in one of their minds, and they went, yeah, that's it. Then I'll be like, oh, okay, well then, yeah, there's a high probability that time travel would not have come up. But the fact that Tony Stark by himself was able to figure this out within an afternoon means that he is that clever.
That was stupid, yeah.
Given the technology and given everything that he, that was given for him to be able to figure out that time travel, he would have been able to utilize the tech, the PIM technology or whatever, to figure that out, whether it was over an afternoon, whether it was over 2 days. He would have figured it out eventually because it clearly was not that much of a strain for his immense intellect, right? It just wasn't, right?
But we're forgetting a factor here, both of you. That is
the biggest fucking part of the whole fucking thing of defeating Thanos. That was the single biggest part. Everything else was like, oh, we need to time travel to this time to get a stone, right? There was a couple of, mishaps here and there. Also, let's talk about this, right?
I need to address something about the time travel thing real quick.
While we're on the way. Black Widow should not have got that fucking stone. She should not have got that stone. It was, you have to sacrifice a loved one, not you sacrifice yourself, right?
Can I address what I was going to address, and then we can get to this?
Plot hole at the center of it. Okay.
Because we're all going to agree on this. That was fucking stupid. But you guys are forgetting that Doctor Strange only saw 14,605 scenarios. He was only meditating for a couple minutes, and then it clearly took a strain on him, and he had to stop. Like if he would have had a couple hours or a couple days, he could have looked at trillions, gazillions of scenarios. There would have been more than one. He only looked at 14 million. And out of those 14 million, there was one. But if he looked at infinity scenarios, there might have been 17. Like, it's not just there was only one. Like, he was only doing it for like 30 seconds.
That's what he said. Come on, man. You can't look. That's what the film is telling us.
He said, I looked into all the scenarios of the upcoming conflict. How many did you see? 14,605,000. How many did we win? 1. He didn't see all of them. He was only doing it for like 30 seconds. And then he couldn't take the toll of it and he fell down. If he would have had a couple hours, he could have seen a gazillion and maybe there were 17 scenarios. So it's not like this was the only scenario in the whole multiverse that could have won.
17 million. If there's 17 million and there's only one scenario, right?
Mhm.
Like if
out of a gazillion, there would be like 10 scenarios.
If out of a gazillion there'll be 10, that's still the same proportion. That's still the same. That's still the same. Like, you know, what you're saying
makes sense.
No, it doesn't make sense because if you look at if you were to put that down to you know, it's 1 in 17 million, right? Or 1 in 14 million. If you double that, right, and you double the number of scenarios, and you double and then you double the amount of times you can win, that in terms of percentage, in terms of you know, a factor of whatever, is exactly the same. It's exactly the same. It means the scenario is virtually fucking impossible.
So like 2 out of 28 million.
Yeah, it's exactly 3 out of, you know, whatever.
But there are universes where, dude, if you look at crime stories.
So again, you're talking about winning the fucking lottery, right?
But it happens
like 7 times over.
But Nerdman, he's a guy who can look at every possibility and he knows exactly the events to do. He knows that Tony had to die. He knows that Black Widow had to eat a peanut butter sandwich. He knows that
someone who's won the lottery 3 times.
They didn't have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange could make them win it every time. So, like, we're not talking about Zack Snyder's real life superhero world, Nerdman. The intellectual.
That's nothing to do with this. That's nothing
yeah, but no. You
don't
act like these movies are so stupid and that Zack Snyder's Justice League is a masterpiece.
Stupid. They are stupid.
I don't understand why you think that Wonder Woman and Zack Snyder's Justice League are so good and these are not good.
Film elitist, is that what I've argued?
No, but I know you, and I know you think that in your head.
Film elitist, is that what I've argued?
No, but I do think that you've tried to mask some of the problems with DC or say that they're not as big of a deal because they shoot for the stars on their themes, and I think that's ridiculous. I mean, it's just absolutely insane.
And Nerdman, I'm only going to be here for like 15 more minutes. I just wanted to jump in for like 30 minutes.
No, it's cool, man. I love it, man. I love it. Anyone who like wants to jump in, it's fine. I didn't realize that like people. I was hoping it would just be like a little conversation between.
But Nerdman, you're picking apart Endgame, which is so easy. I mean, I love the MCU. I can pick apart Endgame all day. Why aren't you addressing the best movies?
Infinity War. I'm picking apart Infinity War as well.
Dude, I was picking apart. You weren't doing a good job though. You were doing a very bad job.
I was doing a good job because I was saying that the things that pay off in Endgame retroactively fuck up what was set up in Infinity War. Plus, the power scaling in Infinity War is bullshit. And I expressed all of that kind of stuff already, right?
Like, but when you have such a good, but when you can't you forgive that?
What I was saying, what my point was, when you take it as an individual movie, then you compare that to other action movies, which are just
you can't do that though.
Titulating whatever kind of action movies. It's a less well-made film.
You can't. It's not a singular movie.
On a story level, it's a less well-made film.
It's not trying to be that thing. You can't compare Infinity War to Die Hard. They're completely fundamentally different movies that try to do different things that are set up by different things.
You could say one is better made, one has a better structure, one has a better
Infinity War.
A better villain who makes more sense.
Infinity War,
where the obstacles that the hero faces are not like conveniences to move on the plot. They're actually things that make sense that have been set up in the story. And I'm saying that is things that those are things that do not happen fundamentally in Infinity War and Endgame, which takes away from the fact that yes, it has a great villain at the center of it. like one of the the best MCU villain there's ever been. But unfortunately, you have to take points away from that villain because the scenario that they've set up of him facing the Avengers just does not hold together because he could wipe them out instantly. And he's just fucking around with them for no reason. And there's nothing within his personality or character that I see that's in the movie that justifies him taking kid gloves to the Avengers like that.
Well, it's all about what you can forgive.
Again, I've mentioned, dude, turn them into paraplegics. If you don't want to kill them, turn them into paraplegics.
I know, or turn them into butter or something. I agree, but it's all about what you can forgive. They had a great villain, great acting, great heroes, great action, great writing, great pace. It's such a good movie that you can forgive the little dumb shit.
We've just said no because every scene has that dumb shit.
You said I can pick apart Die Hard all day.
Every single scene has that dumb shit, right? So you cannot then just go, oh, it has great writing. It doesn't have great writing.
But you're the man who last night or this morning was saying that Predator is one of the greatest movies of all time. And Predator you can pick apart all day.
All right, pick it apart.
It's all about what you can forgive as a person. And you just have a bias against Marvel.
Pick Predator apart. I don't have a bias.
The inconsistent, ridiculous writing, the power scaling, the fact that a man can take on the Predator. Come on, dude. I don't want to get into the Predator right now, but you could. Die Hard, the fact that he swings around on a chain and dodges explosions.
He's an unstoppable monster who has a moral. He has a moral kind of system that, that basically it precludes him killing off all of those people just so easily. He wants to hunt them. That's the point. He wants a worthy opponent to hunt. So he lets beat by Arnie. He lets these guys live. So because Arnie is he's the best of them. He's the best of them. So he's the final one that he wants
Iron Man's the best of them.
So he gives him a license to be able to run away and do all of these things. And that's where Arnie fucking finds a way to
Nerd man. A human with a stick and mud beats an alien with explosives. It's ridiculous. But because you grew up with it, you love it.
It's not ridiculous.
Yes, if Predator came out today when you were
in the movie, it's completely
if Predator came out today, you would hate it. If Predator came out today, you would absolutely hate it and rip it apart.
Bullshit. I'd love it.
There's no easy like Die Hard and Predator. Like they're just as stupid as the MCU, but because people like Nerdman grew up with it, he was the right age for it. He loves it. Same thing with the MCU.
You were the right age for the MCU,
yes,
and that's why you fucking.
I love it.
That's the whole thing. Anyway, go on, Film Elitist. We're getting into this MCU versus DC battle again. All right, go on.
No. I agree with him. I think that Die Hard and fucking Lethal Weapon and Predator, like all these movies have giant problems too. It's just we're not myopically and microscopically examining it right now.
There you go. What made Arnold beat the Predator to make his body heat become cold as so Predator?
Why was it necessary for the plot of Predator? Why was it necessary for the plot of Predator for Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger to arm wrestle in the air?
Because that was fantastic.
Because it was fucking cool.
Because it was cool.
Well, there you go.
It was cooler than anything in Infinity War. If Infinity War had that, if Infinity War had Arnold Schwarzenegger come up to Thanos and give him you see the muscles rippling, their bubbling muscles coming up.
Thanos, like, you son of a bitch.
What a fucking movie. If they had those puns, stick around.
But why are you guys sticking on Infinity War and Endgame? Why aren't you talking about Iron Man 1, The Winter Soldier, Guardians? Like, why aren't you talking about the Civil War, the fantastic movies?
Because everyone says Infinity War and Endgame are the best of those movies.
Endgame is not. Endgame is not. It just has the best moment.
That's what MCU fans tend to say. So
it has the best moment.
If the Predator needed that mask to see, how did their alien species evolve far enough to create the mask they needed? That doesn't make any fucking sense.
And he fights Arnie hand to hand multiple times, and Arnie out fucking fights him.
And he decides to take the mask off.
He doesn't out fight him. He doesn't.
There are times with the Predator, he'll grab Arnie and throw him instead of ripping his face off. It's stupid. You can pick it apart.
And he takes the mask off strictly to prove a point to Arnold that he can beat him without it.
Yeah.
But this isn't about. I didn't mean to bring up the Predator. From the things that you have said in the past, Nerdman, I can't understand why you can't forgive the MCU. Like you forgive other movies.
I don't see those as big plot holes. as the ones in or plot contrivances as the ones I've pointed out in
But
Infinity War.
when you do every single fundamental thing right,
so that the logic of the movie, right? It's a suspension of disbelief. The logic within that movie is consistent. The logic within Infinity War and Endgame are absolutely 100,000,000% inconsistent to what the film is actually saying.
See, dude, I love when you say things and you dig yourself a hole because I throw you right in it. The logic in you hate Thor Ragnarok because it's so comedic and stuff. It's just like Predator. The logic is consistent. It's funny. It's a great action movie, but you don't like it personally. It's just like Predator. You could tear apart Predator just as much as Thor Ragnarok. Thor Ragnarok is consistent. Guardians is consistent, but you don't like him for some reason because you're a maniac. You're maniacal.
Phil Militas, I'll answer to that after, but Phil Militas doesn't talk for a while, so go.
Yeah, I mean,
I love how passionate he gets.
I have to agree with him. This was my original point to you earlier about DC. It wasn't that I wanted to make it a DC versus Marvel, but I do think that you're a little blinded by your biases here. That the films that you personally like, you decide to overlook certain things. And when it comes to the MCU, you microscopically focus in. Now, let me say this. Endgame is a mess. And rewatching it without the initial joy of seeing that come to fruition, I can't help but notice the plot holes. But I do not agree that Infinity War or Winter Soldier or Civil War have those issues. And those are benchmark movies, and they're just as good as any other action movie I've seen in the last decade.
Sorry, which ones? You said Infinity War,
Civil War, and Winter Soldier.
Infinity War, Civil War, and Winter Soldier. I do think Winter Soldier is one of the better movies in the MCU. But the only caveat I would give to that is I think it looks a little. Look, it looks it looks a little bit like a kind of TV movie in some parts. It's the way it's filmed just doesn't. It's not visually very exciting. I'd say of Winter Soldier as well that the villain is vanilla. It's not a really great villain. Captain America kind of holds that film up on his shoulders by being just a charismatic performance at the center of it. But everything he's going up against, it's his own internal struggle that's like the most interesting thing about the movie. The actual villains are just forgettable. It's forgettable nonsense. And then he has the Winter Soldier, who he has a couple of good fights with, but he's just like in that movie at least, he's
modern day Terminator.
Pretty much for the most part an empty vessel that is just a physical kind of threat for the most part, and he's just not got there's no charisma to him like the Terminator or like Predator to make him.
Where's the charisma to the Predator? That's his charisma? Come on, nerd man.
Yes. Yeah, he looks weird. He looks scary. He's menacing. He's got cool weapons. He turns invisible. He does things that make his fight, like the fight against Predator, seem much more of a challenge to the hero, like at that point. And also, I'd have to say the heroes, the colorful set of heroes in Predator, like all of the supporting cast, as well as Arnie himself, are just really much cooler to watch. They're much more entertaining main characters and secondary characters to actually watch. They have
but you care about lines. You care about deep characters.
There's cooler humor. There's like much more like engaging action set pieces. And as I said, the power, the powers and the things that the Predator can do, plus the mystery of who he is. When you're watching that film for the first time, what's the mystery behind? What is the mystery behind the Predator? Who is he? What?
You're literally describing Infinity War.
What are you talking about?
Great characters, great lines, great comedy, a compelling villain, cool powers. You're describing Infinity War, but with Predator.
I think we were talking about versus Winter Soldier, right?
I'm just saying
I was saying that why I would prefer certain action movies. I could go down the line with action movies. Like if you take the can we at least admit this? Can we at least agree this, that when it comes down to it, that what the MCU has done is made a series of action films just with superheroes in them, right? Like they're these kind of basic action, action films essentially. They're not like for instance, The Dark Knight. You can laugh at me all you want about this. It is not only an action film; it's a morality tale, right? The end of battle between the Joker and and Batman comes down to their morality, what they believe, right? That's one of the things that people always bring up about The Dark Knight. It's like it's not settled over just a fight; it's settled over an argument. It's settled over a discussion and who won that discussion.
Well,
yeah, it's the best superhero movie ever made.
So
the Winter Soldier does the exact same thing.
You nerd man, you please rewatch the Winter Soldier, dude. If you rewatch the Winter Soldier soon,
Winter Soldier does the same thing. How? It's a
when's the last time you watched it?
Because it's not just about Cap and Bucky. It's about one man doing the right thing, even when the government that he's supposed to be serving doesn't serve his country. Because what Captain America stands for is serving his country, even when the government doesn't do right by its people.
Bullshit! That is not what he stands for. I'm not gonna have this. That is not what Captain America has ever stood for.
You're gonna sit there and tell me what Captain America stands for?
He stands for doing the right thing no matter what, whether his country agrees with it or not. That's what he's been.
But to him,
he never changed.
That means
he did not change
protecting the country
in any meaningful way. He did not change in any meaningful way in Winter Soldier. All that happened is he was presented with a different problem.
Liar.
He was presented with a different problem, which is his government wasn't doing the right thing. He was presented with something, and then he continued being Captain America, the guy who stands up for the right thing, no matter what. Yeah, he had a moment of disillusionment with America, but it wasn't like, oh, because I've got this disillusionment, I'm changing the foundation of my moral beliefs. He kept his moral beliefs consistently. He did.
He evolved as a person, or else he would have never dismantled S.H.I.E.L.D.
Dismantled S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yes, he told Fury.
Dismantled S.H.I.E.L.D.
He did dismantle S.H.I.E.L.D. It's never existed since then. It's just Fury and Hill working as rogue agents. S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't exist anymore.
S.H.I.E.L.D. had nothing to do with this, and Cap says, yes, it does. If we're taking them down, we're taking down S.H.I.E.L.D. everybody.
Wait a second. So S.H.I.E.L.D. was proven to have been infiltrated by all of these nefarious elements, right?
Right. But Fury...
But don't they after, in the next film, they're like... I think even in Civil War... They're practically listening to S.H.I.E.L.D. again. They just kind of completely forget that S.H.I.E.L.D. has been infiltrated.
That's Hammer
just the government.
Just the government.
Yeah.
But the government were infiltrated by all of these people as well, right? And Captain America never brings this up as like part of why he doesn't want to.
S.H.I.E.L.D. is a certain part of the government, like the FBI, the CIA. They're just a division of the government.
But you saw that in Captain America: Winter Soldier that it had gone all the way to the government, right? Like even just like like there was a government agent who whispered "Hail Hydra," and I'm pretty sure that Captain America was aware of that, and that's never brought up again in Civil War. Like they don't bring that up.
The government in Civil War, so.
No, I know. I'm in that he's consistent, but he never like brings that up as like, hey, like, dudes, we can't sign some accords sign our rights to be superheroes away to the government because essentially,
but he kind of does.
You don't know because like these guys are infiltrated. They've been infiltrated by
agendas change.
Various group.
He implies that because he says, "What if there's somewhere we need to go and they don't let us?" Like when they were working.
But that's just saying what the government would do. That's not saying because the government have been infiltrated by like these nefarious groups.
Birdman, when was the last time you saw Winter Soldier? You've only seen it once, right?
Probably,
Hey, I have
yeah.
to go. So can I make one point?
Yeah. Yeah, go
Well,
on.
please, I'm about to have to go too. Please watch it
Yeah.
again, Nerd Man. Please, you will be like, oh my god, this is so much better than everything else.
I think you were
No, I
fundamentally.
watched it. I watched it again recently. It wasn't that
No,
long
you
ago,
didn't.
and it was.
No, you didn't.
I
Not
did.
fully.
For
'Cause I just asked you, and you
during
didn't. You couldn't answer it.
during the coronavirus, I did watch it again, and it was an enjoyable movie. But I didn't think it was
Amazing.
anything.
Amazing.
I don't know why they talk about it in The League with the Dark Knight, or even Batman Begins, or any
Because
of those
this
movies.
is why
It's just not that. It's not.
I'm about
It's
to
not
body you, bro. I'm about to body
that
you.
good. Okay,
Batman
go on. Please body me.
Batman fundamentally did not change as a person in The Dark Knight either. Batman was forced to do things that he normally wouldn't do to defeat the Joker. That's all that changed. He did not change as a person. He did not change. Batman was all about doing what's right, not murdering people, etc. The only thing that happened at the end of that movie was he had to take an L. He had to become the villain and lie to the people of Gotham. And in a way, the Joker won. And the only way to stop it was to become something that Batman never wanted to be. He had to become the villain. But
Batman Begins. He goes through so many transitions in Batman Begins.
But we're
so
talking about
many.
The Dark Knight.
Like Batman Begins, but The Dark Knight is pretty much the Joker's movie, so that's fine. He doesn't change that much. He basically just stands by his morality, even if that means that he'll be shunned from society. But in Batman Begins, he literally he's confronted in the car. He wants to murder the people who murdered his parents. He wants a kind of a justice. So there is character growth in that. And then when you go to The Dark Knight Rises, there's another kind of character growth where it concentrates more on him again, where he's left basically doing anything. He's been shunned from society. He's left being the Batman, and he has to be brought back into it by this group arising in Gotham City, and that causes him a lot of. Yeah, go on.
In the first Captain America, he's fighting with the government because it's convenient, because they happen to be fighting the bad guys. But when they become the bad guys, he fights them too. That is transformation. That's an arc. That's saying, I realize that my idealistic version of America, where the government always does the right thing, is not the fuck how things actually work. And what it's really about is about being a hero, one man doing the right thing no matter what.
So, all right. So we've got one little kind of thing that makes the movie a character has some growth.
Don't even go there.
A tiny bit of growth. A tiny bit of growth. But that does not make it a morality tale in the same way as The Dark Knight. I'm sorry.
It's also about friendship.
Yeah.
It's about bonds that hold people together. It's about loyalty to your country. It's about being a soldier.
Yes, and it all plays out within the character of Captain America himself.
It's also the morality,
and he's a good character in that movie, and it makes it enjoyable. It doesn't make it better than like other action movies in that kind of. The only reason it's propped up is because it's part of the MCU.
But you're missing the biggest part of it. Is that there's an undertone politically about the NSA spying, about the Edward Snowden stuff that was going on, that they warp into the film with them spying on the people that they're going to murder with the drones. That was a huge, brave thing to put in a comic book film.
I think that doesn't get explored.
Oh my! Roll your eyes at that.
It doesn't get explored. It doesn't get explored that much in that movie. It's like it's like a couple of passing scenes where he's talking to Nick Fury at one point, and he's looking at the weapons, and he mentions some things. And yes, but that is the majority of that film is about his conflict with Bucky.
Hey, Nerd Man, I got a request in the comments. Like Adam wants me to say this. I guess I say it all the time. What are we, some type of Suicide Squad?
Hey guys, I gotta go.
All right, Film Elitist, thanks so much for jumping on here.
Yeah, bro. Hey,
amazing. I will do, man. We'll talk about that thing that we were talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this week, or even this weekend if you're up
See you,
for it.
man.
Cool.
Yeah, just hit me up.
Peace,
Peace,
Yeah,
guys.
dude.
Yeah, look, dude. I was coming on here because I had a conversation with him offline that I thought was interesting, and I was like, I always have these interesting conversations when I'm offline. Why not just stream our conversation? But
Yeah, he texted me and was like, he said, I'm going live with Nerd Man. And I was like, oh, they're either talking about like some politics or some MCU. And I saw, is the MCU overrated? Now, to answer the question,
yes.
It is. I mean, if you want to get down to it, it's overrated. It's not this heavenly movie series that everyone says it is. I just personally love it because it nailed the comics so much. But it's not. There are some weak movies in it. In game, the ending, the culmination of the 10-year journey was kind of disappointing. Like people overrate it. Like people act like they're some of the greatest movies of all time. They're not.
That's where I take problem with it. I really do. I look at individual films and I try and match them up with the MCU, and I'm just left thinking I would watch that movie 10 times over MCU movies. I just would, because the for whatever reason, maybe it's the pulpy aspect of it, maybe it's this the fun that it's having, or I'm talking about things like The Running Man or Total Recall. I don't know if you ever watched The Running Man, dude. We've got to do if you haven't watched
I watched The Running Man when I was a child. I remember it. I was like probably 8 or 9. My dad had it. I watched it. I can't remember the characters' names, but I remember what happened in it. It's like a cheesy, crazy fucking action movie with wacky characters with like chainsaws and electricity and shit, right?
Yeah.
He's in that competition where people are trying to kill him, right? Like in that game. Yeah, I saw it once.
And what I'm saying is, like, so the 80s movie, like the 80s action movies, for instance, I would rank like a lot of them above like MCU and DCEU movies. I just would. I don't think that they're even comparable. I just think on a filmmaking level, they're not. The only thing, and rightly or wrongly, and you can take me apart on this, the only thing that I give those DC movies is that either they have a kind of directorial perspective, which I enjoy, right? Or alternatively, they can be morality tales, but done much less well than The Dark Knight or Jurassic Park or something, or like these are classic high concept morality tales, right? That are played out through like a thrilling action concept, right? Like, so it's dinosaurs back in the real back in the modern world, right? And with that we can explore these kind of Frankenstein philosophical ideas of it.
That's one of the most overrated movies of all time. Take away seeing dinosaurs for the first time.
All right.
Good movie.
But what I was saying is that you can explore those ideas of what happens when man tries to become God, where science gets us to a point where we can actually play God, recreate things that don't exist in nature at the moment. How that would impact us? Can we control it? All of those things. What are the responsibilities of science? I think they do, like to a large degree. I think
for half of it. I think they do. They do for half of it.
I think they do a good enough job to kind of explore those themes while keeping you excited in an actual action-packed, thrilling story.
I think Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, like those types of movies are kind of MCU feeling to me. Like they're fun action movies, good acting.
But they're
no,
better.
They're not.
That's my only thing. I think
Iron Man 1 is a morality tale. Iron Man 1 is a morality tale.
Iron Man 1 is interesting because it's
fantastic.
A kind of outlier. It's a kind of outlier in all of these kind of movies because
it was the first one.
It really is, because I do think that it's still less sophisticated in the way it tells its morality tale, but it is somewhat of a morality tale in the sense of he is this big CEO who didn't care about what he did with his weapons and whatever. And that does play into like what massive kind of military industrial complex companies and contracts do around the world, like arming, different nations, not worrying about it falling into the hands of terrorists and all of this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does play into that, and then it kind of explores that, and then he kind of changes his ways in that movie. So that for me is the kind of outlier in it, and it is like a little bit more, and that's why I say, to me, all in all, I would put Iron Man as probably my favorite MCU movie. It's it's got to be up there, like as an MCU movie to me.
Well, the last thing I'll say, then I gotta go. I guess you can end it.
Yeah, I'll end it.
I have my top 50 movies list written for a future video, and 6 of them are MCU movies, if that tells you anything. So out of my 50 favorite films in existence, more than a 10th of them are MCU movies. So I mean, maybe they shouldn't be there, but they are.
Yeah. Okay. We'll interrogate that one day. But I do. Yeah. Like my final word is just like, I'm not trying. This wasn't me trying to put like the DCU over MCU. I do have one thing that I like about it more, but I can see that there's weaknesses in the DCU. That means that even if I bring up that morality aspect of it, you can just kind of hammer in like some great points against those movies as well. So it's kind of like it balances out where, yeah, there's some individual directorial personality to them, but that doesn't always mean that that director has the right ideas about like everything in those movies. And yeah, they might have some morality, but does it do it as well as something like The Dark Knight or V for Vendetta? Absolutely not. So the DCU does have that kind of weakness in it as well. But again, I look individually, match for match. I can put so many action films from the 80s, 90s, even now. I'd say Collateral, for instance, as a movie, like to me is a lot better than 90% of MCU movies. I wouldn't say it's as good as Infinity War or Avengers, just because of how big,
I wish I could have got on here from the beginning. Because the whole concept of a comic book movie is just intrinsically different than a regular movie because I grew up watching cartoons, playing with toys, reading comics, and I'm loving this character. And now I'm finally getting this character on screen. A tangible person is playing that character. That's just already from the get-go. It's going to be my view of seeing Iron Man on screen is going to be different than seeing Tom Cruise in Collateral, which is a great movie, but I don't have any attachment to that character. They have to do the legwork on their own to make me like that character. Like already, I'm gonna like a comic book movie more because I grew up playing with a toy, reading his comics. I get that. So I don't even think that's why I think that I kind of separate comic book movies with films. Like my favorite film of all time is Birdman, but my favorite movie is The Avengers because I just have that connection. But seeing them on screen is so satisfying.
Does The Avengers ever surprise you? Even when I first saw that film,
yes,
nothing in it surprised me. There was no twists, and there were no twists and turns, I would say, that are as big as let me think.
There's no like Kaiser Soze reveals or like the Sixth Sense, but like
I'm even talking about like something like
when they found out Shield was making weapons,
something like Kick-Ass, right? Or Kick-Ass, or like I'm just talking about other superhero movies here.
Like you mean like reveals or just like things where I'm like I didn't expect that to happen, or both?
Right, I didn't expect that to happen. There's no twists and turns and whatever. It's pretty much let's get from A to B to them having them get that big battle at the end of the movie, right?
I mean, you don't expect Loki to be wanting. You don't expect Loki to be. You don't expect Loki to be wanting to unleash the Hulk. You don't expect the Hulk to smash Loki in the end. Like there are so many Hulk. I'm always angry. You don't expect that. There's so many great moments that are unexpected.
But that's not a twist or turn. That's just like a cool, like, high five.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but it's a straightforward action movie.
Yeah, exactly. So they're straightforward action movies for the most part. Civil War had a bit of a twist that was interesting, where you thought that they were going to fight. You thought they were going to fight the other soldiers, right? Like the other soldiers like him. And then in the end, it was actually to get Captain America and Iron Man to fight each other, right? So you thought that what Zemo was trying to get at, but he wasn't. So that was a little bit of a big twist or reveal that like made that a bit more like, oh, that's unexpected. I didn't know that's where the film was going. But a lot of those films follow that kind of straight path. Like, let's get it, a reason for conflict, to happen. Have some like move the story towards these action beats, and then get to a final battle. That's basically the trajectory of those stories, which is fine, whatever. But a lot of other action movies, if you look at like Total Recall, the amount of twists and turns and ebbs and valleys that it goes through in that movie, and reveals and whatever, make it much more like, ooh, it's almost like a thriller, like what's going to happen. You're still trying to figure out what's happening halfway through the movie. It's the same with Inception or, there are a number of other movies. I don't want to go into this.
Rat Race.
Rat Race, exactly. But that's where I'm saying that those MCU movies, for the most part, are quite simplistic in their narrative form. And it means that, unfortunately, because even though they're building up to this big universe, they can seem a bit generic and samey. And superhero movies in general need to get away from that. They need to start
if I didn't grow up, because I gotta go. If I didn't grow up loving superheroes, I wouldn't love the MCU. I mean, they're good movies, but like they're excellent because I love these characters, and they also. I wish I could have been in the whole time on this. I don't have time.
We will have another talk another time. But
Black Adam
for joining.
Black Adam. There's we have a whole video about what we think about The Rock as Black Adam. It's on my channel. Go watch that. There's too much to say about that. I think it's a terrible idea. Nerd man, kick us out.
Cool, man. Thanks, guys. Thanks for all the comments, all of you joining us today. I hope, this was an interesting conversation to have. We were having it offline, so I thought, let's bring it online so you can share in the entertainment of it. So hopefully it was good for you guys. I'm not against the MCU. I really am not, but, everyone will think I am anyway. But apart from that, I'll see you on the flip side. Love you 3000. Peace. Oh, please give me a high five. Smash that like button if you haven't. Thanks so much. Peace.